with the Chirpy YouTube channel. I am glad that you're here today. Since the issues of race that are happening in our country still remain, nothing has been fixed yet, we want to make sure that we continue to learn and that we continue to teach our kids what they need to know to participate in bettering this country in many ways. In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about 5 reasons it's important for young kids, all people, but especially the population I'm thinking of, young kids, to learn about race issues. In this video, I share with you 5 reasons why young kids, all kids, especially all people, but especially young kids, the population that I most often interact with and serve in my profession, why it's important for them to be learning about race issues at an early age and in their homes and in their classrooms. Sometimes teachers or parents might say, we're not Black, we're not people of color. Why should I teach my kids about this? This is the video for you. First of all, I need to say that when one part of our population or when one people group is oppressed, is treated differently because of that race, is marginalized, we all suffer. We all suffer because then the dominant culture is under the delusion that they are more important and more valuable, which is a type of slavery in itself. And we are missing out on the contribution of valuable people who have something to give. And we don't want that to happen. We don't want that pattern to be repeated with the next generation. We want to really change things in this country, in this world, and we need to start by teaching kids very young that no race is better than any other race, that people of every ethnicity are valuable, are important, are worth being friends with, are worth investing in, deserve the same assumption of innocence as the dominant culture, which is white. Having said that, let's move on to point number 1, which is no group is completely homogeneous. Homogeneous, of course, meaning all the same. Let's talk about white people. In my country, the United States of America, white people may share a skin color, but we do not often share an ethnic background. My family comes from the border of Germany and Poland with some help from Switzerland, and that is not necessarily shared with other white people in my community. I don't know where their families came from. I don't know when their families emigrated. My family emigrated in the 1800s at some point, the mid-1800s, I believe. Not that long ago. Okay, it's a long time ago. Not that many generations, I guess, ago. My family was still in Germany or Poland or wherever it was they came from. Recognizing that the group of children who sit in front of you in a classroom or the group of white children in your neighborhood, they are not all the same when it comes to ethnicity, when it comes to cultural backgrounds. They all are different. We don't want any of these valuable cultures and traditions to be lost. We want to make sure that we are continuing to value where we came from. And not only where we came from, but where the people we love came from, where the students we care about came from. If your class is all white students, that doesn't mean that you can ignore ethnicity because all of your students came from somewhere different. And we need to value the backgrounds of the people that we care about. Some action points on this topic are that It would be great to investigate your own background, your own family's heritage, if you have it. Look for meals that your grandmother made. Look for places your great-grandparents lived and what their lives were like, and share that with your kids. If you're a teacher, ask families of your students to share with you some of the holidays that their family celebrates that may be a little different, or how they celebrate. Ask families to share with you unique things about their family's experience potentially in the culture that they came from, if they came from a different place, or within their own ethnic groups in the wider environment of the country in which you live. Because there, of course, are groups that share cultural identity within the wider culture. And we want to know and understand those. And we'll talk more about why in a little bit. Another action point for this is that you can do projects based on things about your kids that are different and things that are the same. For example, you can have young kids, elementary school aged kids, and I have even seen this in preschools in a visual way. You can have them vote on if they like apples or bananas better. This is for preschool students or special ed kids who are not yet reading. Each kid has a picture of themselves, and you have a chart that has apples and bananas on it. And the kid gets to put his or her face under the apple or under the banana. And it allows kids to see that people have different opinions, and that is good, and that is fine. And we can still be friends. We're still part of the same classroom. We're still part of a community together, even though we have different opinions. You can also do this with different traits or characteristics that people have. You can do it with hair color. You can do it with eye color. You can do it with people who have freckles versus people who don't. This is another way to demonstrate that we're all different, and yet we can all cooperate together. We can make friends. We can communicate. We are a community, and we don't need to all be the same. In fact, we were not meant to all be the same. Thinking about this, the fact that we are all different, we all come from different backgrounds, understanding the backgrounds of other people helps me understand my own background better, my own ethnic ideas. Unless I hear someone else's idea that's different from mine, I don't even realize that my beliefs are unique, that there's something different about what my family does for Christmas. I don't know that it's weird to open presents one at a time, and most families open them all at once. I don't actually know. I haven't asked very many families this. But I don't know that it's weird to eat Mexican food on Christmas Eve versus eating, I don't know, turkey or something. But unless I talk to somebody else about their traditions. And so we learn to value our own traditions more when we contrast them with someone who does things differently. And yet, because we're communicating in a respectful way, we don't believe our own traditions are better. We just value them because they are unique. Action points for this point. Action items for this point are to make sure that your students, no matter their ethnic heritage, are exposed to a lot of media, whether it's books or videos or posters of different people from them. Make sure that not everyone you read about in your classroom has the same skin color as your students or has the same skin color as all the other media that you look at. Bring diversity into the media that you are exposing your students or your family to. And one of the reasons is because you realize that other people are different from you. This is a very important skill. We can't develop a sense of self or a sense of compassion if we don't realize that we are different from other people but we are equally valuable and equally interesting and equally worthy of love and respect. And by making sure that our kids are trained in seeing lots and lots of diversity in their lives is one way that we're going to help them get there. Point number 3, kids care about injustice. Kids are often the ones who read Charlotte's Web and say, I don't want to eat animals anymore. Kids are the ones who say, why did the police pull him over when you don't have a tail light either? Kids are smart. They notice this stuff. And we need to support their sense of justice and their desire for justice. So educate yourself. As always, I will leave more resources in the box below this video, because as white people, as people who are part of the dominant culture, we don't understand what happens outside of the world we see. We don't know how it is to be someone else. We can imagine, but the best way for us to learn that is by asking people who are different from us what their experience is. How are they moving through the world? How is it different for them than it is for me? I need to learn that so then I can share that with my kid or with my students. Zaretta Hammond, I'm going to read you a quote here, differentiates between multicultural education, which is just exposing students to lots of different cultures, and social justice education, which provides a lens for the student, really being able to look at the world and seeing where things aren't fair or where injustice exists. This is tough, especially for very little kids, but even very little kids understand justice and fairness. They understand that it's not fair if one person gets 12 cars for his birthday and the other person gets 1 car for his birthday. If they're in the same family, kids would complain about that. And so we need to show that there are some places in our society where things are not fair and where things are not just. In fact, it's all over the place. We all have experienced injustices in life in some ways. Maybe it was just the 12 cars versus one thing when you were growing up. But people of color, specifically black people, most often black people, I guess, or they get the brunt of it, experience a lot more injustices than white people do. And white people don't face injustice based on simply on our skin color, for the most part. And this is something that we can start watching for. We can start teaching our kids how to protect people they see who may be unable to protect themselves. If we don't teach kids that some people tend to be attacked more, not necessarily in a physical way, but people tend to be ignored or mistreated, people tend to be mean to these groups more often. If we teach that to our kids, they're going to be more likely to act when they see these things happening. They're going to be more likely to be compassionate when they see injustices happening. Action points for this item I've kind of talked about already, in that you need to educate yourself on how to be an ally to people of color. How do black people, how do other people of color feel supported, and what would they want your kid to do in a situation where there was bullying or racial slurs going on at school? So inform yourself and then bring that into your interactions with your child or with your students. Make sure if you're a teacher that you don't allow these kind of slurs to take place, that you are very careful about your own language, and that you keep on learning. It feels like there's a never-ending list of things that I need to learn and words that I need to stop using because I didn't even realize where they came from. But this is part of the process of being a compassionate person who truly tries to empathize with people who are different from me. Number 4, all of what we've been talking about will enhance your child's social emotional skills. Social emotional skills are the one thing we can measure in early childhood and say Kids who are good at this are better at everything else in life than kids who aren't good at this. There are 5 core competencies. All 5 of those core competencies are being trained and strengthened as we work on stamping out the idea of one race being better than any other race, as we work on equality, as we work on justice. All of these 5 core competencies get better. Core competency number 1 is self-awareness. And kids are working on self-awareness when we're teaching them, you are in such and such ethnic group. This is our history. This is where our people came from. Here is how we have interacted with other people groups over the years. This is all part of self-awareness. Self-awareness also includes being aware of our own biases, our own privilege, and our own perspective on the world. Core competency number 2 is self-management. Our kids will be working on this by thinking through things before they say them, by recognizing hurtful thoughts before they come out of the mouth, and by choosing to be kind and compassionate to people who come from other backgrounds. The third core competency is social awareness. This one seems kind of obvious, but as we're working on building more successful relationships with other people, we're working on social awareness. Social awareness also includes the ability to see where injustices are happening, the ability to see how society as a whole plays a part in keeping some people from accessing education or resources. It includes the ability to take the perspective of someone else and the ability to empathize. And those things all are being strengthened as we work on stamping out injustice. Core competency number 4 is relationship skills. Once again, this seems kind of obvious, but when we are working on relating to people who are different from us and getting rid of any kind of injustice, we are working on relational skills. We're working on negotiating, talking about difficult issues, understanding other people, listening skills. Those are all very important, and they will be strengthened as we practice. Core competency number 5 is responsible decision making. This one is going to be strengthened as our kids work on, as they see things happening that should not be happening, doing the right thing about it. Finding a teacher to say, so-and-so used a bad word about my friend. As they get older, practicing protecting people they love, practicing taking the side of the person who is persecuted, doing the right thing. And this is all a practice of doing the right thing for all of us. We can choose to ignore the injustices that we see, or we can choose to teach ourselves to have compassion, to empathize with people who are very, very different from ourselves. And I think we all know the kind of person that we want to be. We want to be the person who is compassionate. We don't want to be the person who is angry, the person who just closes her eyes and refuses to see that other people have a different experience in the world than she does. And we want our kids to be able to do that too. Not only because it's good for the other person, the person who is marginalized or oppressed, but because it's good for us. It is good for me to not be part of a system that is harming someone else. And by teaching myself and by teaching my kids, the world is going to get better. Reason number 5 why we should be teaching how to stamp out injustice, how to be anti-racist, is that your child will not always be in a monoculture. If your child's class is all white right now, that is not always going to be the case. And when your child goes out into the world, you want your child to be prepared to interact with people from different backgrounds and not to assume that everyone thinks like she does and should speak the way she does and has the same holidays and the same traditions and the same family structure that she does. we need to make sure that our kids know that people are different. People come from different places, people speak different languages, people have different skin colors. People are different. And that is one of the things that makes the world such a glorious, interesting place. We don't want our kids to be surprised by that. We want to prepare them, and we want to teach them that it is good, that there is diversity. It makes the world fascinating. Your action point on this item is pretty clear. Keep on exposing your kids to diversity in all of its wonderful flavors, and make sure that they hear directly from you that no one is better than anyone else. That's a good lesson for all of us. Thank you for being here with me today. Thank you for taking the time to think about this issue and to perhaps learn some new things so that you can better prepare your students, so that you can better teach your children to be the kind and compassionate people that I know you want them to be. You are a kind and compassionate person just for being here and exposing yourself to new thoughts and ideas. I hope you have a great week. I'll see you next time. Bye.